Okay, hi everybody. I'm sharing my final project. I did not follow the instructions that I did not read. I did not notice in projects or in week 17 that it told us to do these certain other ones. So I made one from scratch. So I'm going to walk through what I did and show you guys what I did, and hopefully you like it. So this is the final grade what if calculator. And I made this program because every term I get students who ask me, what do I need to get on the final in order to get such and such grade in the class? And I can never answer that question because the the number that I give them is going to be different for every person based on how the individual categories break down, because we use weighted categories. Every class uses different categories, every class uses different weights. Um, and your number might be different. You both might have an 82, but yours might be lower assignment or lower activities, higher assessment. This one might be higher activities, lower assessment, and the final grade will have a different effect on your overall grade. So that's the introduction. Now, the program itself consists of 5 Java files. The first one is main. It's the one that when I run the program, it has the run lines. It has a tab called introduction. Introduction is literally the information that posts on the screen as soon as they open the program. You'll see some little weird code here, like this right here. I tried to put comments every time I use it, but this code literally says, the beginning of this says move the cursor to the first location on the screen, and the other part says remove all the text on the screen after the cursor. So it's basically just a big easy way of wiping out the screen and then flushes it. So all of this is going to show up on the screen. It will give the user, who's a student, the option of entering a 2, a 3, or a 4. So if they enter a 2, it's because they're in my second period personal finance class. If they enter a 3, it's because they're in my third period geometry class. If they enter a 4, it's because they're in my fourth period computer science essentials class. There's a while loop here that its purpose here is only to make sure that they enter an integer 2, 3, or 4. So if they enter a 5, so if I go to run this program, here, let me run this program, and you will see the beginning pop up. Welcome to the final exam what if calculator for Mr. Pleasure's 2020-21 distance learning classes. These classes are available for the asking 2 personal finance, 3 geometry, 4 PLTW computer science essentials. First, please tell me which class you're asking about. So if they enter a 5, then I know that's invalid input. So it enters a while loop until I put in the condition of second period. Now, each period that they enter is going to send them to a different file. So if I go back to main, I can see introduction intro equals new introduction to the constructor for the introduction.java page or class. The I have some uh, variables being declared here, and oh, this constructor right here runs that original thing, because in this part it just puts a whole bunch of stuff on the screen and then takes an input. That's all it does. Once it's done, it goes back here to main, and it's still on line 22. It's just a shortcut for running that introduction.java file. It's a way of abstracting all of that stuff because it's going to run every time I run the program, and I didn't want to clutter up the main.java with it. So now the period number that they enter here, period number is whatever the scanner reads as the next integer. It is getting stored as period number over here from the intro. See, introduction, intro, dot period number, that is that variable that's over there. So it gets used here. There's a string called class name. Final grade current is this double variable or double set at 0.0. Final grade letters, an empty string. Whew. Now, I have a section for calculations. Now, all three classes, personal finance, has different categories. It has activities, it has workbooks and videos, and it has assessments. In the learning management system, you get points given for points earned, you get number given for points possible, and you have the weight. So activities are worth 25% of the grade. Workbook videos are worth 25% of the grade. Assessments are worth 50% of the grade in this class. In geometry, it's different because it has activities worth 50%, it has quizzes worth 20%, and it has tests worth 30%. PLTW Computer Science Essentials has 30% on activities, 35% on projects and problems, 35% on quizzes and tests. So every set's going to be different. But from main here, or from main, it's going to take whatever period number you entered in the introduction, and it is going to go through an if then or if else statement. So if they're period 2, then I'm going to fill up a scores array with the numbers that come from personal finance. If they put in a 3, then it's going to fill up this array with the numbers that come from the geometry. And if they enter a 4, because remember, I can use else because it has to be a 2, 3, or 4 because I limited them with that while statement, then it fills up all of them for CSE activity. This only works this way because the 3 classes have 3 categories each. If something was different and one of them had 4 categories, I would have to do this differently. So based on that, I'm filling up a scores array. The scores array was declared up here. It is an array full of doubles. There are 9 integers in it. 3 for points earned, 3 for points possible, and 3 for the weights. Now, once it has those numbers, depending on what they put in, let's see. So where does it come from? Well, it comes from this right here. Just like the introduction, this one right here is telling me run the personal finance class, or it's a constructor. It's a new instance. It's an instantiator for the personal finance class. I saved it as this because I'm using attributes from it. I did not necessarily have to use this to call it, but if I want to use stuff from it later, I have to call it in this manner. So if you pick 2, which I did over here, then I need to go over here to see what it's doing. Here's all of the stuff that it printed out, and it's going to ask me for numbers. Now, I did not put any data sanitizing here, so that's a vulnerability. I didn't check to make sure that it's a double. If this were an actual program that I would publish, I would want to do that. But I'm remembering the numbers from last night. So let's say in the personal finance category, in the activities category, I had the numbers written down. Probably don't need them right now. Yeah. So 1,135.5 points earned out of the 1,500 possible. In the workbook videos category, 399 points earned out of the 600 points possible. And then in the assessments, 100 points earned out of the 100 points possible. So before I hit enter, let's see what this is going to do. Because I'm right here on line 72 right now. It's taking in this assessments points possible. So once I'm done with this is the end of that constructor, the personal finance empty constructor. Go back to main. It's going to store all of these numbers from there into the scores array that it's going to use here. Now it's going to clear the screen again, and then it's going to tell me what my current grade is. This calculation right here is for the current grade. Depending on what my original period number was, I'm going to run one of three function methods. So and the switch case is just another way to say if then else. I'm just using it to showcase, pun not intended, just a different way to do if then else. So for period number, if they entered a 2, then the final grade letter is going to be whatever. Okay, so let's look over here. So whatever the letter is. So here's score to letter grade. If or A plus is 100%, A is 94%. So it's going to take that number grade that it calculated here, and it's just going to tell you what letter grade it is. And it's going to say your grade in the class is blank percent, which is a B minus or whatever. And then it's going to do the what if part. So if your original period number was 2, then it's going to do the what if output generator over in personal finance. If it's period 3, then it's going to do the what if output generator for geometry. If the period was 4, then it's going to do the what if output generator for period 5. Now it's an ugly calculation, but notice that I have this same information, these numbers here, referring to a letter grade. I have them stored as 2 different arrays. Now, theoretically, you could make an object that's a two-dimensional matrix, but matrices need to be the same class. So if I run a string for one, it should be a string for the other. If it's a double for one, it should be a double for the other. Now there's a generic object class where you can mix them, but it's generally considered bad programming practice, and it's better off to leave them as separate strings, which is what I did. So now it's going to step through each of these, and it's going to say, in order to earn an A plus in the class, and then it's going to plug 100 into this. Then it's going to say, if you want an A, it's going to plug 94 into this, and it's going to iterate all the way across that, or it's going to traverse those 2 arrays at the same time. The final is out of 200 points. It goes in the assessments category, except in geometry where it goes in the tests category. So if the number comes out and they need more than 200 points on the final, so you have to get 567 points, let's say, on the final in order to get an A plus in the class. Well, that's not possible, and it's going to tell you that's not possible. It's not mathematically possible to get this grade. If the number is a negative, meaning you can't get a negative score, you're going to bottom out at 0, you're going to get that grade whether you take that or not. So it's going to spit that out, and then it's going to break from the for loop because there's no sense going down. If you can skip the grade and get a C minus, then there's no sense doing it again for D and doing it again for no mark. In the middle here, it's going to tell you what out of 200 you have to get. So now let me hit enter here. And there we go. Your grade in personal finance with the numbers that I entered is 85.55%, which is a B. And you notice over here it's more than 83 but less than 88, so it's a B. It's not mathematically possible for you to get an A plus, A minus, or B plus in the class. To get a B, you need 184 out of 200 on the final, all the way down to a C minus is 88%, or 88 out of 200 on the final. Now, keep in mind, it jumps from C minus down to no mark. There's no D in this particular class, but they could skip the final and still get a no mark in the class. Not that that's a good thing, but just letting them know for completeness. So the personal finance is that particular one. It uses slightly different calculations because these numbers are input separately. I can use the variable names to calculate, but the only differences are, well, there's not really any difference in the methods here, other than filling up the arrays, populating those arrays. These arrays are filled up differently for computer science essentials, for personal finance, and for geometry. They're different for each one. Other than that, the calculation, and one slight difference, because personal finance doesn't have a D, there are only 10 things in there. This for loop goes out of 10. Because there is a D in this class, there are 11 grades, so this for loop goes up to 11. Once that is done, the program is done, and I can rerun it for whoever wants to go next. So I can rerun this program. Let's say somebody in geometry wants to take it, and their grades are 839 out of 1,000 in activities. They've got 300 out of 300 in the quizzes, and they've got 196 out of 200 in the test category. Now, I purposely pick students with high grades for these examples, but mostly that's just to show all three of these. So it's not mathematically possible for you to get an A plus or an A. It gives you numbers for A minus through C plus. You can skip the final and get a C in the class. Notice that it doesn't do C minus, D, or F. And that's because down here under geometry, I put this break in here to break out of the for loop, because if you can skip the final and get a C in the class, there's no particular reason to talk about the C minus or the D or the F. So that's my program. I hope you guys liked it. I worked really hard on it. If there's any other questions that I can answer, please let me know. Thank you.